At the beginning of my last EVE Online Tools video, I talked about how much EVE relies on its community, and I've got to say that it's no different here on my channel. So many of you guys left comments or reached out to me with lots of different suggestions for EVE tools, some of which didn't quite make the top 5 to get into the first video, and honestly some I'd never even heard of, so it only makes sense that we take a look at some more EVE tools. This video is aimed at both existing and new players, so if you've just started the game, don't worry. While these tools might not necessarily be something you need to use right away, or might come across as super complicated if you've not got much experience in the game, I'll do my best to explain what each of these tools are useful for and what kind of playstyle suits using them. First up, EVE Gatecamp Check. Now this one I have perhaps some controversial opinions on, but it was by far the website that people mention the most when reaching out to me about other EVE tools I should cover. For the unfamiliar, EVE Gatecamp Check is a website where you can enter a start location and a destination with the option to include specific waypoints or systems you want to avoid as well, and in return it will provide a list of the systems you'll be travelling through while following that route. Crucially, alongside how many kills have happened in that system in the last hour, and how many of those kills happened at a gate. On the face of it, as Ron Seal Woodstain would say, it does exactly what it says on the tin. It checks gates for camps. However, I think a lot of people misunderstand this tool and the extent to which it's helpful. It goes alongside my at this point monthly rant about how rare high-sec ganking is compared to the image that gets portrayed about it. If you're brand new to the game and looking to get into hauling or need to move outside your usual area of operations in New Eden, I highly recommend trying out EVE Gatecamp Check. However, it's important to remember that it can only tell you what has already happened, not what's going to happen. This is the same as all intel tools, but it's vital you keep in mind that red flags are a cause for suspicion, while green flags on systems are not a cause for relaxation. Using HiSec as a specific example, at time of writing, there are 488 HiSec ganks recorded in the last 7 days. That's 2.9 ganks per hour in the entire game for the last week. That sort of sample size simply is not enough for past ganks to give much predictive power on an hourly basis as EVE Gatecamp Check uses. Furthermore, if you're the kind of person that's actively worried about getting ganked on the journey you're taking, there's pretty good odds that's because of the amount of cargo you're carrying or the fit your ship currently has. Basically, the simple fact that you're using online tools to minimize your chance of being ganked means you might well be exactly the kind of person the gankers are waiting for. All this is to say that while EVE Gatecamp Check has a use in the wider arsenal of intel tools, make sure you're actually taking note of which systems in your route are choke points that see the most ganking over time spans much longer than 1 hour. That's something that Z-Killboard is a great option for, which I covered in my last video on EVE Online Tools. It's kind of like using a satnav or GPS to get around a town when you first move there. It's a good way to learn things, but after a while you should be internalizing a lot of the information it's giving you, in such a way that you don't need to use this tool forever. Although I will add as an aside that I think the tool has a much better use case in nullsec and lowsec, where kills within the last hour are actually quite a lot more useful in my opinion, since the gate camps there are, with only a few exceptions in systems like Abazon, a lot less static. A system that is otherwise dead quiet might suddenly be the pick for a few friends to camp for an hour before moving on to another, and EVE Gatecamp Check might save your life there. Now I know that by covering Excel as one of these tools I'm really fulfilling a meme, but this is a very genuine must-have for some people. I have to make it super clear to new players though that if you want to explore the vastness of New Eden, fly in the biggest fleets, and truly get woven into the fabric of EVE's community, you won't need to know how to use a pivot table. Wars in EVE, much like real wars, are won through logistics and planning, but it really is only the people involved in that logistics, industry, and large-scale planning that need to know how to use these tools. If, however, you, like me, happen to be exactly the kind of person who loves putting together an Excel spreadsheet to help optimize your activities, then EVE's Microsoft Excel add-in is well worth checking out. My only warning is to be careful not to try and make some sort of Microsoft Excel equivalent of a general formula for all of EVE. This is a classic beginner's mistake when using tools like this. Try and find a straightforward achievable task, preferably something you have to do manually a lot, and try using EVE's Microsoft Excel add-in to automate it. I, for example, set up a sheet that checks for the market availability of popular items in my Alliance's nullsec staging trade hub, and highlights anything where we have dangerously low stock. This, along with dozens and dozens of others with similar setups, helps plan imports and manufacturing to keep the Alliance outfitted with all its wants and needs. There's absolutely nothing wrong with less lofty goals too. Want to keep track of your daily ISK income or your progress towards a certain goal without needing to keep track of time or copy-paste wallet data around? Remember that you're essentially taking the power of everything Excel can normally do and allowing it to operate on data points both unique to your EVE character and just generic EVE datasets. I also feel the need to dispel a very common myth about the EVE Online Microsoft Excel add-in. It does not require a paid Microsoft 365 subscription. I hear this a lot from people who've never tried it or who are annoyed about not having access to it. If you have a Microsoft account, even a completely free Outlook email or something, just go to excel.new in your browser, click the add-ins option under the Home tab, and you will be able to add EVE Online to your sheet. You don't even need to download a desktop version of Excel or anything. Now, EVE Workbench is a bit of a multi-tool, but for me it's easy to point a finger at which of their tools is most significant. That would be the fits section. Bear with me, some of the more veteran players that watch my content. Just cast your mind back to your first few weeks and months playing EVE, and remember that we don't come pre-installed with fitting knowledge. EVE Workbench features a great selection of user-submitted ship fittings, which can at the very least serve as a starting point. Of course, if you have a specific activity in mind, you should probably seek out suggested fits from people who specialize in that activity, rather than EVE Workbench. But if you are learning about a new ship and just want a general idea of ways it can be fit, then EVE Workbench is an invaluable tool. Definitely check out more than one though, look through a good 3 or 4 fits and see what changes, what stays the same, and see if you can work out why those things would vary. That's a great way to get an idea for what various modules do and why someone might or might not use them. If you log in with your EVE account, you can even see whether or not you have the skills required to actually fly the fit and automatically push it to your EVE Online account from anywhere, rather than needing to copy and paste it into the game. Sometimes people can overestimate how much of the EVE player base, especially new bros, actually know about a certain tool. That's why in my last video I included Z Killboard, and why in this video I'm going to include Janice. This is my preferred website for this job, but truly this slot is just dedicated to appraisal tools in general. Some people might remember EVE Appraisal, which unfortunately, despite some surviving forks, went the way of the dodo. But I have to say, this is one of those rare circumstances where monolithic websites dying off actually give way to something I would argue is better in almost every way. Janice is very straightforward to use and interpret. You either copy-paste from the game into the text box or free-type it if you're a little freaky, and click Submit. The website then presents you with an appraisal showing you what those items are worth. You can customize these things a bit, but by default it'll be telling you Jita split. No, that's not Jita cut in half with ice cream in the middle, it's the midpoint between the current highest buy order and lowest sell order. Your appraisal is then given a unique URL that you can share in Discord, in-game, EVE Mail, Carrier Pigeon, whatever means of communication your corporation uses, and everyone will be on the same page when doing player-to-player transactions. The big bonus feature for this tool that I use a lot is the reprocess option. For some reason, there are like a dozen different reprocessing calculators available in EVE, and they're all kind of wonky or overcomplicated. In Janice, you just click reprocess and it's going to give you the value of those items reprocessed. You can play around with the exact reprocessing efficiencies if you'd like to accurately match your circumstances too. Finally, this one really has to be a shared title because it's impossible to pick between them and it's really going to be up to personal preference. But Wormhole mapping tools are such a massive level up to EVE Online that they need to make this list. In fact, I'm convinced that a lot of people I meet who have an aversion to wormholes could be converted if they got into using one of these mapping tools. The two big classics in this space that I have to bring up are Pathfinder and Tripwire, but some of you guys recently introduced me to another option called Wanderer that I checked out, and it definitely deserves a shout out. You can think of these tools as a bit of a mini-map for EVE. With wormholes being a navigational puzzle in and of themselves, you can see why a tool like this is a bit of a must-have when traveling around J-Space, but I consistently use these tools even when I'm not touching wormholes. I'm going to focus on Pathfinder here since it's the one I'm most familiar with, but you should check out all three and see which one fits your use case best. First of all, you can collaborate with these, share them around in your corporation or alliance and work together on the same map. The map will automatically track where you travel between systems in-game, adding them to the map if they don't yet exist, as well as tracking the mass that you just put through the wormhole by reading what type of ship you're flying. Then, if you want to get way more involved, you can customize finer details about that wormhole and record the signatures in any given system. This signature copy-paste is the feature that sells it for me. I use this constantly even outside of wormholes to keep track of new signatures spawning in and old ones being removed. If you have multiple people in your corporation keeping this up to date, it can save you a lot of time, so that only one of you needs to scan down some trash DED site and record it, rather than everyone going through the same time waste and disappointment. Both Pathfinder and Tripwire feature tools that act slightly predictively based on the statics in the wormholes you jump into, and the names of any wormholes you actually investigate further, but Tripwire definitely does a better job at this in my opinion for people actually living in a wormhole who need to map out their chain all the time. But for more information on wormhole life, I encourage you to take a look at the first video in my new series, What to Do in EVE Online, where we're going through the EVE careers chart bit by bit, and it just so happened to start off with wormholes. Thank you so much guys for all the tools you mentioned in my last video. If there's still any more that you think deserve a shout out, do let me know in the comments and I'm sure we can take a look at them sometime in the future. Until then though, I'll see you in the next video. If you want to help support the channel, consider buying your next EVE Online pack, subscription, or Plex from marqueedragon.com using the link in the video description. Use coupon code BILL at checkout for 3% off your order.